Happy Friday. How was your week? Hope it's gone well. Things have been good for us here. And it's kind of funny. This past week's been interesting, to say the least. In a lot of good ways and in a lot of ways that I think are fucking hysterical. uh, I'm not really a phone person. If I call someone or someone calls me, it's pretty much, hey, what are you up to later on Kenny or the crew? What are you doing? Okay, gonna be here at this time. We're meeting up. Okay, and it's usually short and sweet. Even with my daughters and whatnot, it's usually, hey, you're gonna be home. I'm stopping by. Dad, you're gonna be home. I'm stopping by. Yeah, okay, quick. It's not very often I get into long-running conversations on a phone. This past week, I think I spent more time on the fucking phone between Dave and Will. I think I spent like well over 3 hours on a fucking phone than I've spent like in the last 3 months combined. We had some good talks. Dave, we got into a talk about clones. What's the big deal about a clone? Some people, I don't want a clone. Oh, it's a clone. It's a clone. It's terrible. Look at that thing. It looks just like it. Yeah, but it's a clone. We both said the same thing. So what? So what if it's a clone? you know? When it comes to clones, the most cloned car you'll find will be like the 70 through 73 Z28s. Why? Because they are the easiest to clone. You can take a regular base Camaro, 6-cylinder, pop off the Camaro badges, pick up 4 metal Z28 badges, pop 2 on the front fenders, 1 on the grill, 1 on the tail panel or the spoiler. Not all of them came through with a spoiler. A lot of things were options people don't realize, but they became so popular like mid-year that Chevy just said, fuck it. We got orders coming in, yeah. The guy wants a spoiler, the guy wants a front air dam. The stripes were even an option. Those weren't standard equipment. But people wanted them so much that Chevy just fucking gave it to them. It wasn't free. It was on the options list. You paid for it. But it was popular, so they just put it out to the public that way. Paint stripes on it. You got yourself a Z28. You know what I mean? A lot of them running around. I've seen a lot at car shows. They find a 350, even if it's a regular base Camaro with a 350 2-barrel. A lot of them, they wouldn't even build the engines. Put a Edelbrock aluminum intake on it, small Holley 650 vacuum secondary, some headers, gives it a little more get up and go than that. 215 horsepower, 350 2-barrel. Dual exhaust. Sounds good. Runs good, looks good. Guy's happy with it. If I saw it at a car show, and I would be able to nitpick things. You guys would be able to notice little things. Look at the back. Hey, it doesn't have the thick, heavy sway bar. Yeah, Z28s came through with that. Look inside it, look at the dash. It's got a big gas gauge where a Z28 would have a tachometer. You won't see water temperature. You won't see certain gauges that were standard on a Z28. I wonder if this was regular Camaro that's been upgraded, I'm sure you could find little things wrong with it if you went out of your way to look for it and if you knew what to look for. The average person at a car show walking by, wow, that's an Z28. I wouldn't mind having it. I wouldn't mind having it either. So what if it's a clone? People with their matching number. Oh, well, period correct. I think some people are too fucking extreme and they nitpick way too much. There are a lot of clones around, One clone that people don't even realize, Big Chief and Street Outlaws, is 70 GTO, the first one, the Crow. That wasn't does he still have it? I know he wrecked it at one point. Then he came back with that Pro model, fiberglass body. I forget what he called it. The front on that resembled the 67, 68 Firebird model year. I didn't like it. I haven't followed Street Outlaws in a long time. I don't even know what's going on with any of them these days. Well, for many years now. But I know he came back with that Pro mod after he wrecked his first one. That wasn't a GTO. I think I heard him talk about it one time. He had that car. He bought that car when he was in high school, used. It was a 72 Le Mans. He popped a GTO nose on it. People thought it was a GTO. It was a clone. Big fucking deal. It looked like a GTO. He liked it. Going down the street, people thought it was a GTO. They liked it. Big fucking deal if it's a clone. Know what I mean? One thing though that's funny, when I got out of the military and I worked at that German steel company when I was in engineering there, a guy that worked there pulls in the lot one day with a real nice 68 GTO ragtop. Had ladder bars on it. BF Goodrich radial TAs, Kreger SS wheels. That drag went down the wrong fucking way. It had a pretty decent 400 in it. A little above stock. It was somewhere around 370 horse. I think it was originally the 350 horse. The base 350 horse. Did a few things too. It was around 370 horse. Sounded nice. He did a full rotisserie on it. He came in one day and he showed all the pictures when he picked up that car. It wasn't quite a basket case, but it was pretty rough. And he went through that car. He spent like 3 years on it. You know, some people when they get a project, they actually get it done in a reasonable amount of time. You know what I mean? Unlike Sanford's projects that go on and on and on and on until he gives up, sells them, junks them, whatever. And no matter how long he has them, it's never going to reach its claim that was made. You know what I mean? It's going to fucking rot there. I'm going to walk around the car, and what I noticed right away, and I asked him if it was a clone. I don't know if I insulted him at the time. We ended up talking about it later because of the fact that my uncle, I cringe every time I say this, my Uncle Tony, my real Uncle Tony, Antone Samaro, that was my mother's brother. He's the guy that was like this with Bobby Tasker's old man. That's how things got started from when I was 7 years old. Being involved with people. He had a 68 GTO. It was Aztec gold with a black vinyl top. And I had that Endura bumper on the front. His had the hideaway lights. That was an option. You know, had the Rally 2 wheels, as they were called, with the chrome trim rings. Had the tack on the hood. It had the functional ram air scoops on the hood. You know, and he had done a lot to it. Car was quick. He had like 488s in the rear. And it was a 4-speed. He had a Muncie in it. Rock crusher. It whined. It had a fucking whine to those things. You know which ones whine too? And I didn't see many, but I saw a few. Remember that fucking Saginaws? Those Saginaw transmissions had a little bit of fucking whining to them too. That guy was fucking gorgeous. And I saw, wow, fucking 68, 69. They're very, very similar. I prefer the 68s where the taillights are recessed in the bumper on the lower part, completely away from the trunk lid where it mates with the bumper. 69, they raised them up so it runs into like the trunk lid itself on the upper angle. The other ones are on the lower. I like the 68. I like the 68 grill. 69, it's already got a little bit of like a mesh to it, like little squares. And 68 was just all black and horizontal, you know, texture to it versus the like little square, like little checks. I like the 68 over the 69, even though I wouldn't mind having a 69. They're like, wow, 68. Because when it was parked, I walked out, I saw it by the back. I saw the back bumper, the tail lights. I'm like, wow, fucking 68, cool. His name was Danny. We're talking, looking at it. We get to the front of the car and I look. I probably shouldn't have said anything, but I couldn't help it. I says, can I ask you something? Is this a Le Mans that you restored to a GTO? And he looked at me. I said it, and then when I said it, I was like, shit, I probably should have said that. I probably insulted the guy. But his reaction was he laughed. He said, you know, Brian, you know how many people have asked me that? He used to take it to car shows because the front bumper on that thing was all chrome, just like Le Mans. He says, you know how many people ask me that? They ask if this was a Le Mans, and I just, you know, put the GTO decals on it, you know, and put a GTO hood. You know how many people ask me that? No, it's a GTO. And as much as I'm a Pontiac guy, I didn't know this. I found this out for the first time. Even in that year, 1968, that was the standard front bumper on a GTO. The same fucking chrome bumper as a Le Mans and a Tempest. And a T37. Those T37s were nice cars. It was pretty much, you know how Plymouth had the Roadrunner that was a real low dollar lower option, lower scale performance car. The T37, that was what Pontiac did. Same thing with the GTO. You don't want to spend as much as a GTO, but you wanted the same performance. Like with Plymouth, the GTX was a little more upscale, a little more creature comforts, a little fancier, more chrome, more this, more that. The Roadrunner gave it the same thing for a lot less money, but it just wasn't as fancy. Pontiac did the same thing with the GTO. They had that T37. You could get the same powertrain in that thing. That thing would run door handler with the best GTO out there. Just didn't look as fancy. Had a bench seat, no bucket seats, column shift. And most of them are automatics, and even if you got a 4-speed, it was on the floor, like with the Roadrunners, called bench seat with a 4-speed on the floor. That was Pontiac's way of doing what Plymouth did with the Roadrunner. For some reason, they weren't big sellers. They weren't very popular. But they had their place in the Pontiac model catalog. And a lot of people ask me that. He says, it had this on it when I got it. It's a real GTO. He says, and when I was restoring it, I even thought about swapping that out because it had a little bit of rust on it and stuff. I thought about picking up an Enduro bumper that you can get aftermarket anywhere these days. He said, but no, I wanted to keep it original. I had it all re-chromed. He says, and even though I think it looks better with the Enduro bumper, I wanted to keep it original. The only thing that's not original on it is the fucking Craigers, rather than the Rally 2, wheels with the chrome trimmings. Still feeling that drag. Says, I can't count. Because you're not the first and you're not the last that's going to tell me that. By mid-year 1968, more and more people going to dealers, they saw it. Hey, I saw one with that. Did have some with the Enduro, some with the chrome? How come? Well, that's an option. And then when they were out of them, can you get me one? Can you get me one? It became so popular that by mid to late year 68, Pontiac just put them all out with the Enduro bumper. And then they started putting those Enduro bumpers on Bonnevilles, Catalinas, and a lot of other cars. I remember seeing a commercial on that one time. A guy took a fucking tire out. He's whacking the front of it. Look, it doesn't dent. You know what I mean? Excuse me. Damn. Drank my coffee too fast. I burped. By 1969, that became the standard bumper on a GTO. It was no longer listed as an option, but you paid for it. They just included it in the base price of the car. You know what I mean? It was no freebie. It was so popular that the only option that remained was whether you had hideaway headlights or the fully exposed headlights. And that's that talk we got into, Clones. I don't mind the clone. I'd have no problem with it. But some car guys, they're so fucking fanatical, even down to, oh, it's not matching number. Oh, it's not period correct. Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? But then again, you want cars like this, yeah, go to Barrett Jackson, go to Mecum. When I was in Scottsdale for those 3 years, I saw a lot of cars come across the block, all original, LT1 350, 360, 370, I forget what they were, 360 or 370 horse. Z28, all original, matching number, blah, blah. It was fully restored, but it's an all original car, matching number, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's rolling across the block for 130 grand. And I saw clones up there that looked just as good. Some of them even fucking were a lot quicker. Because now these guys didn't care so much about originality. They knew it was probably, a base Camaro. I still got this fucking cold. My nose is running. I got to blow my nose. I will not do that on camera. Unlike Uncle Sanford, I do have a little bit of class. They're like, look, the car's a clone. I'm presenting it as a clone. I'm not trying to con anybody and tell them it's an original. It's a clone. I have no problem saying it's a clone. But I want it to look like a Z28. You know what I mean? It started out like this, a base Rally Sport or a base Camaro with a 6-cylinder, but everything was done right. They had the right gauge cluster in there. They had that thick, heavy sway bar. They had it like, but because they weren't so concerned about full originality, it was a clone. Now it gave them a little room to play. They'd have engines in those things that would blow away that pure, original, stock Z28. I saw them with 396s, 427s, 454s, a lot of LS, 500, 600, 700 horsepower engines. These cars roll across the block at 50, 60 grand. You're getting them for half the fucking price. It looks just as good. And if you're a hot rodder, it's actually going to drive the fucking car. It's going to outperform that stock one, all original. You're going to pay twice as much for it. That's a conversation we got into clones, you know. Some people, I don't want a clone. Oh, beautiful car. It's a clone. It's a clone. So what? So fucking what if it's a clone? But some guys are so fucking nitpicky. And I wonder why. And a lot of these original cars now that are all original, you know, they're going for big money. The muscle car market's kind of been damaged by people that have way too much money, that they've run the prices up so high that they're out of the reach of the common guy. And what do these guys do with these cars? Are they going to drive them and have fun with them? Or are they going to be parked just to look at them? Go buy a fucking AMT or a Revell fucking model, you know, make it, stick it on a fucking table and look at it. If you just like the look of it and all you want to do is look at a car, you know, between a model kit and a paint kit and Tesla's glue, you could do that for under 20 bucks, you know what I'm saying? But we got into, you know, how some people are so fanatical and nitpicking. It's not number matching. It's not even period correct. It was a Le Mans, not a GTO. It was a Camaro. It was a Firebird. It wasn't a Trans Am. It was only a Belvedere. It's not really a Roadrunner or a GTO. Really, who gives a fuck? Some guys give a fuck. And I think these guys are just miserable fucks that need to complain about things. They need to find something to find fault in. And now I will end with this, because that's where it leads me back to Sanford. I know there were many times he's going to check out people's cars. I remember there was one guy one time with a car somebody was going to buy, and he called in Sanford, his big, you know, like fucking Pawn Stars, fucking Rick, when he's got somebody there, he's going to call one of his buddies that knows everything about everything. You know, Sam, hey, he's that buddy to people. I got a car, he wants to sell a car. I got to call Sanford. He has to come here and tear this thing apart, find out everything that's wrong with it, tell me if it's worth the money. And Sanford goes, this is wrong, that. I remember there was one I saw one time. The guy's standing there like, Sanford's tearing this guy a new fucking asshole, doing everything he can to find fault with this guy and insult the fucking guy. And it made me think. Sanford, of all fucking people on the face of this earth, should be the last person to ever walk up to anyone's car and find some fucking fault with it, considering all the fucking junk that he owns. The weekend's here. Have fun and stay safe.